Hello everyone. In this lecture, we are going to see the views of two literary theoreticians on the question of dosa. These two theoreticians are Ānandavardhana and Mammaṭa. Ānandavardhana divides the whole realm of dosa into two broad categories. These two categories are doshas that arise out of the lack of training of the poet and the doshas that arise out of the poet's lack of pratibha or poetic genius. According to Ānandavardhana, the most severe of these two is the second one. Ānanda says that doshas that is due to the lack of mature judgment of the poet may be concealed by the poet's skill in such a way that it never gets noticed. This is what Dandin also mentioned in his Kavyadarsha. In our discussions on the poetic fold in Kavyadarsha, we saw various instances where an apparent dosha turns out to be a guna due to the poet's skill. Ānanda says that if the poetic genius can hide a visible dosha, a fault that is due to the poet's lack of skill can never be hidden and it will appear glaring to the readers. An example that Ānandavardhana cites in this regard is a scene from the 8th sarga of Kalidasa's Kumara Sambhava, where the poet presents the Sringara Rasa of Shiva and Parvati. This scene is generally considered to be an example of dosha, since a poet is not supposed to present the love-making of gods on the stage, considering the fact that it can put the readers to shame. But in Kumara Sambhava, Kalidasa, with the help of his pratibha or poetic genius, presents this scene in such a manner we do not feel any impropriety or dosha. When we discuss the idea of dosha in the theoretical corpus of Ānandavardhana, we will notice that Ānandavardhana's discussion of the idea of dosha is mostly related to the idea of rasa. Ānanda in Dhvanyaloka talks about certain situations that can function as the poetic fault in the process of the development of rasa. Although Ānanda does not use the term dosha in this context, we can undoubtedly consider them as the examples of doshas vis-a-vis the question of rasa. The following are the faulty situations which according to Ānanda can mar the beauty of rasa. Incorporation of vibhavas etc. that belong to an obstructive rasa, the description at length of something alien even though it may be connected with the subject at hand, breaking off of the rasa too suddenly, revealing the rasa at an inopportune moment, flashing the rasa again and again after it has reached full maturity, and finally the impropriety of style or vrittyanauchitya. Since we have already seen these situations in detail in connection with our discussion of rasa, I do not intend to elaborate on them again. In addition to this, Ānanda also implicitly deals with the question of dosha when he talks about the structure of a plot. He lists around 5 situations or doshas that can mar the beauty of a plot. These situations mentioned by Ānanda include the forming of a plot, either traditional or imagined, without taking into account the appropriateness of its vibhavas, sthayi bhavas, anubhavas and sanchari bhavas. Secondly, the retention of a pattern traditionally imposed on a story even though it fails to harmonize with the intended rasa. Third, the construction of sandhis and sandhyangas just out of a desire to fulfill the requirements of a textbook system. Fourth, inability to intensify and relax the rasa at the appropriate moment and the inability to revive the predominant rasa whenever it begins to fail. Fifth, the inability to apply the figures of speech in conformity with the rasa. After Ānandavardhana, the next major critic we are going to see in connection with our question of dosha is Mammaṭa. Mammaṭa broadly divides doshas into three broad categories, namely rasa dosha, shabda dosha, and artha doshas. First, let's take a look at the rasa doshas mentioned by Mammaṭa. We will soon see that Mammaṭa is merely reproducing the ideas of rasa doshas already mentioned by his predecessor Ānandavardhana. According to Mammaṭa, rasa doshas are 10 in number, and these 10 rasa doshas mentioned by Mammaṭa include vaśabda-vācyata, kashta kalpana, virodhi-rasa-sāmagrī-parigraha, paunaha punyena deepana, akanda prastava, akanda vichcheda, anginonusandhanam, angasyadi vistruti, prakriti viparyaya, anamga varnana. Let's see these doshas one by one. The first rasa dosha that Mammaṭa mentions is vaśabda-vācyata. What is vaśabda-vācyata? Vaśabda-vācyata is the reference to a particular rasa by taking its proper name. According to Mammaṭa, rasa has to be evoked with the help of appropriate vibhava, anubhava, and vyabhichari bhavas. If their proper names are mentioned, they will lose their poetic charm. We have previously seen Ānandavardhana's criticism of Utpada's view that rasa can be generated by saying the proper name of the rasas. The next rasa dosha that Mammaṭa mentions is kashta kalpana. Kashta kalpana is the difficulty in understanding the vibhava or the causal factor that is responsible for the generation of anubhava or reaction in their characters. According to Mammaṭa, the dosha called kashta kalpana refers to the far-fetched relation between the vibhava and anubhava. The third rasa dosha is virodhi-rasa-sāmagrī-parigraha. It is the incorporation of vibhavas etc. that belong to an obstructive rasa. For example, the incorporation of a vibhava like death is highly problematic in the representation of Shringara rasa. The fourth rasa dosha is paunaha punyena deepana. It is the flashing of the rasa again and again after it has reached full maturity. Since we have seen this particular dosha when we discussed the theory of rasa as conceived by Ānandavardhana, I do not intend to elaborate on this again. Here, Mammaṭa is reproducing the same rasa dosha mentioned by Ānandavardhana. According to Ānanda, if a poet works on a rasa over and over again, even after it reaches a state of total perfection, it will wilt like a flower. Emotions in excess can only be counterproductive. For example, a long drawn out lament over a death can turn an otherwise tragic scene into an extremely tedious one. The fifth dosha is akanda prastava. It is the untimely introduction of a conflicting rasa. Mammaṭa says that an example of untimely introduction we have in the second act of Veni-samhara, where while the slaughter of numerous heroes is proceeding, the poet proceeds to describe the loving dalliance of Duryodhana and his wife Bhanumati. The next dosha that Mammaṭa mentions is akanda vichcheda. It is the untimely interruption of a rasa. According to Mammaṭa, an example of untimely interruption, we have the second act of the Mahavira Charita. In this scene, when the heroic sentiment between Rama and Parashurama reach the highest pitch, Rama says, I am going to unfasten the nuptial bracelet. Here, the whole Veera-rasa or the heroic sentiment plummets when Rama decides to go for a negotiation with Parashurama, his opponent. The seventh dosha is Anginoanusandhanam, or the discarding of the principal factor. Mammaṭa holds that the dosha called the neglect of the principal factor can be found in the fourth act of Ratnavali, where on the approach of Bhapravya, Sagarika, the heroine, is completely ignored. The seventh dosha is Angivistrati, or the excessive description of the subordinate factor. We have seen this dosha in Ānandavardhana's description of the rasa doshas. At that time, I have explained this dosha with the help of a modern example. I hope you remember it. We saw in Paradise Lost, Milton describes the fallen angels thronging towards their new-built palace of Pandemonium by an elaborate comparison to the swarming of the bees. Here, if Milton leaves aside his primary goal and then keeps on describing the swarming of the bees, this will spoil the major rasa in this context. According to Mammaṭa, the excessive dilatation of the subordinate factor is found in the lengthy description of Hayagriva in the Hayagriva-vatha Kavya. The ninth dosha is Prakriti-viparyaya. If the behavior of the characters is not proper to their nature, class and social status, it results in the dosha called Prakriti-viparyaya. According to Mammaṭa, if the hero of a kavya is a human, it is improper on the part of the poets to present that human hero doing things which a man cannot otherwise do. For example, if a poet portrays a human hero leaping across the seven seas, it will sound really inappropriate. The same is the case with the ascription of some base human qualities to divine entities. We should not ascribe qualities that we see excessively in humans to divine characters. Here, Mammaṭa is exactly reproducing the words of Ānandavardhana. The last rasadosha is Ananga-varnana. It is the description at a great length of something alien, even though it may be connected with the subject in hand. It is the celebration of the unimportant object. These are the major rasadoshas mentioned by Mammaṭa. I hope you are thorough with all these ideas we have discussed so far. Thank you.